Will Hard Eyes get a second date or should they get ghosted? Stay tuned and find out.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy V-Day!
Don't get killed, all right?
What was...
Why would he say that?
Welcome to Robert Reacts, the show where I react to things. Thank you for joining me. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the movie Heart Eyes, and Gus, my lovely dog, is going to be running around me.
Like your puppy, you're the number one.
Heart Eyes is a movie that came out this Valentine's Day. It is a Valentine's Day slasher. Daniel and I were going to go to the movies to see this because our cell phone carrier was giving out $5 movie passes for this. And what always happens is that one of us will save it and the other one forgets. And so we end up not going to the movies. Or we both save it and decide the movie's not worth the trip out of the house. One way or the other. Are you like us? Thanks to Amazon, we were able to watch this at home, and you can too. You can either use the link at the bottom of the screen, or there's going to be a link in the description box below. If you use our link, we get a small commission. It costs nothing to you, and it helps to keep our channel going. So we appreciate you using our links. And I'm going to be looking at my notes. So if I'm looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes because I wanted to be prepared. Heart Eyes was released February 7th, 2025. It was directed by Josh Rubin, and it stars Olivia Holt, who you'll know from Totally Killer, Mason Gooding, who's in the new Scream movies, Jordana Brewster, who is from the Fast and the Furious movies and The Faculty, and Devon Sawa, who is from Final Destination, the new Chucky series, Idle Hands, and Michaela Watkins, who's from SNL and a whole bunch of other stuff. Trust me, when you see her, you'll be like, I know that woman. I've seen her in something. Rotten Tomatoes, which is where I'm going to go to get the critical and audience consensus for all of my movie reviews. Rotten Tomatoes score is 81 for the critics. Their consensus was a mixture of gory slasher and sweet rom-com that ingeniously nails both formulas. Heart Eyes serves up a bloody Valentine that'll make the heart skip a beat. The audience is usually a little truer to whether the movie is enjoyable or not, right? They gave it a 77, and they said, with a killer mashup of romance, cheese, horror, and comedy, this Valentine release may lack a compelling plot, but it's surely a feast for the heart and eyes. And it lacking a compelling plot is actually something that I really enjoyed because I felt like they were making fun of Hallmark movies. And before we go too much further, I just want to say this is going to be a spoiler-filled review of Heart Eyes, but I will give you a fair foghorn-style warning before any spoilers show up. So we're not there yet. Don't tune out yet. But there will be a loud warning for those who don't want to be spoiled. I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. My expectations were on the floor, essentially, when it comes to this movie, because I just assumed it was going to be bad. This actually might be one of my favorite of those holiday-themed slashers where it's like the filmmakers did such a good job of mimicking the Hallmark movies, which, like, I think I've seen maybe one Hallmark movie, and I think it was the one, oh no, that might have been a Lifetime movie, but they're kind of similar. Like, right, the flavor is a little similar. But I do watch a lot of Golden Girls, and the show gets rerun on the Hallmark Channel. So I'm constantly seeing commercials for, like, you know, Christmas in Aspen. Based on the commercials I've seen, it seems like they did a really, really, really good job. I was blown away by Olivia Holt, who I didn't recognize her from Totally Killer, but she was really good in that one too. She plays kind of like a mean girl. Check that one out if you haven't seen it. And if you want me to review that one too, I will happily rewatch and review it. It was also nice to see Jordana Brewster and Devon Sawa, who were in a lot of movies when I was a teenager. It was nice to see them all grown up and playing adults in, you know, like a teeny bopper kind of slasher film. It seems like Devon Sawa is having a little bit of a moment now. I know that he was in the new Chucky series. That man has aged like a fine wine. He looks great. If you liked Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or Happy Death Day, you're going to love this movie.
Warning! Warning! Warning!
So here is your spoiler warning. You have about 5 seconds to leave this video before spoilers will begin. Spoilers begin now. Okay. So the movie starts off at a vineyard where there's a couple getting engaged. And we zoom out and we see that there's a photographer trying to capture the moment for them. And the killer shows up and stabs the cameraman through the, not just the long zoom lens, but also the camera itself with a machete. It's such an absurd and creative kill. And it also, it makes my heart sing when a horror movie starts with opening kills. You don't understand what's happening. You just know that there's trouble. You got trouble. Silly that the cameraman gets killed with a machete through the zoom lens. It's very funny, but it's also super creative. We then see the groom die and he gets hit by an arrow. And I don't love, if I can be super honest right now, I watch a lot of horror movies. My imagination is constantly swimming with different ideas on how to enact a kill or something. Like, I get creative ideas all the time. I don't love how much crossbows are being used in horror movies because I feel, not because I don't think they're scary, I think they're terrifying and I feel like it's too much realism. But a step further is I feel like you can walk into any sporting goods store and buy a crossbow and bam, you have the equivalent of a gun. I guess you could say the same thing about people buying cars, but there's just something about crossbows that gives me anxiety. The realism is a little too much there. And I guess because Scream was what started the fervor around horror movies for me, and that was so realistic. I don't love that we're getting like new realistic stuff right now. I don't want to have to think about that when I leave the house. The bride runs off into the grape pressing barn and hides in one of the grape pressers. And this is now our second super creative kill. We've seen people get smashed to death in movies before, but never in a vineyard, like never in a setting that is so romantic. Ooh, how romantic, you know, we're pressing this Cabernet or whatever it is. Cheers to the filmmakers. It was a great scene. We then find out that it's Valentine's Day and there's a serial killer who loves to kill on February 14th each year. And this year, it's Seattle's turn. And this gives way to the meet cute for the main couple, Allie and Jay, who are played by Olivia Holt and Mason Gooding. Allie works for an ad agency and just created this entire idea for doomed lovers through history. Because of the killing that's happening, the commercial is now unusable. So they hire Jay to fix the campaign. And it's, again, another moment where I feel like they're really coming for Hallmark's neck. It's a room full of people just like losing their minds over the fact that they have to change this ad instead of losing their minds over the fact that there's a serial killer in their city. No one cares about that.
There's people that are dying.
It seems like a thing that only lives within the world of a Hallmark movie. We then meet Hobbs and Shaw, who are Devon Sawa and Jordana Brewster. And there's this joke about Hobbs and Shaw, which I don't really like. I get it, obviously, but it's like, why was this included? I don't know if it's maybe a reference to Hallmark and that Hallmark likes to take pop culture and throw it in there sort of in a strange way where it doesn't really make sense. Shaw immediately seems way too focused on finding a date and showing the photo of the guy that she's going to respond to on Tinder or Bumble or whatever it is. She's way too preoccupied with things that are a lot more low stress than the crime scene they're there to investigate. And then the other thing she does that made me suspicious of her is that she happily jumps into this grape pressing machine that is full of blood and gore from this woman that was like freshly squeezed. Whoops. And I immediately shouted out, wow, Jordana Brewster's the killer. She seemed at home. The juxtaposition was that Devon Sawa's character is like practically throwing up from the idea of this thing existing. I feel like these movies love to have the killer in plain sight. So this obvious nature of us pointing to Jordana Brewster, or the plot pointing to Jordana Brewster, it's like part of slasher movies. We then see Allie and Jay at dinner where they're supposed to be working on the ad. And we get this moment where we find out that Jay is a romantic and that Allie is jaded from a recent breakup. And this is, again, another nod to most common Hallmark movies. It's usually this woman who is very caught up with her career, and then she has dinner with like her old math tutor from high school, and it turns out that he's been in love with her for years, and she's been too busy in the financial world or whatever. Like, it's like very Hallmark again. Somehow we end up on this. I forget. Someone says something, and then the other one runs out, and so we end up on the street. And Allie sees her ex coming toward her and decides to kiss Jay to essentially make her ex jealous. And this moment doesn't really it is integral to the plot, but we don't really find out why until practically the end of the movie, which is why I'm telling you about it now. They then run into Allie's ex and they have a whole conversation, blah, blah, blah. Then they get into an Uber and Allie gets dropped off, but she can't find her keys. So Jay helps her break into her apartment. And in the process, he cuts himself up pretty bad. So Allie is kind of like tending to his wounds, and Hard Eyes pops out and starts chasing them. And again, we have another scene with a crossbow. Like, I understand that the crossbow is definitely a reference to Cupid or to the movie Valentine, which I think most of the kills in that movie were done with a crossbow. But it is as a Valentine's Day movie, to be using a crossbow as the murder weapon is really, it's great because it's in all of the Valentine's Day stuff that includes Cupid. It works. Okay, so we end up at the park and there's the scene on the carousel. I love a carousel in a horror movie. There's just something creepy about it. There's something fun about it. And then it's moving, but it's not moving very quickly. Some of the horses are also moving up and down. Like, some of the components on the carousel itself are moving up and down. There's so much tension on a carousel. I love it. So Hard Eyes finds her, tries to get her. She falls off the carousel. The cops show up and are like, we caught him. Turns out him that they caught was Jay. They're thinking, ooh, we have Hard Eyes. No, it's Jay. I mean, fair. It's usually the love interest. We head back to the police station, and Allie runs into this guy who recognizes her from Bumble. And this is another moment like the moment with Jordana Brewster, where I was like, this is weird. This is this stands out so much. This has to be the killer.
I've been aware of the killer since birth.
And then if it wasn't kind of awkward and strange, this guy asks her out. And it's like, you're both in a police station. She just came in with someone in handcuffs. This is such an inappropriate thing to do right now. You need better manners, sir. We see a death with a flagpole, which, again, it's another one of those weapons. And I know that I'm probably fear-mongering way too much right now, but most office buildings have flagpoles in them. And it also reminded me of the movie Sick. There's a really, really diabolical scene with a flagpole in Sick. And if you haven't seen it, check it out. Again, if you want me to review that for the channel, I would love to rewatch it because it's probably one of my favorite new horror movies. We then see Shaw knocked out because, Hard Eyes has shown up and tried to mess with some people. And then Hard Eyes gets Hobbs, which was very sad to me because I didn't want to lose Daddy this early. But we say goodbye to Devon Sawa. And then Allie and Jay leave the police station and head to the drive-in. And when the cinematography zoomed out and we got a real, wide view of this drive-in, I was like, we are about to witness a massacre. Like a serial killer on Valentine's Day at a drive-in where everyone is in their car doing whatever it takes to fog up the windows, Titanic style. Like, this is about to be curtains for the entire town. Allie and Jay decide to hide in a van with a hippie couple who don't really get that there's a serial killer. And so they're, doing the horizontal mambo in the back of their van. And they're not interested. They think that that Allie and Jay are role playing. They get a little bit louder. And Hard Eyes finds them and kills them both. Like he stabs the guy who's like laying down and then like slams the woman on top of him. Very efficient. Allie and Jay then kill Hard Eyes. And when they remove his mask, it's just a random guy. It's not Bumble. It's not Shaw. It's just a random dude. But it's pretty clear that we're not done yet, right? And they split ways. Allie goes home and Jay has to head to the airport because he's had this friend's wedding that he can't, like he's got to get out of town yesterday to get to his friend's wedding, even though they just brought him into town. Allie calls her friend and they have a whole like, if you love him, go get him thing that it compels Allie to go to the airport to get Jay. She makes it all the way to the airport and gets a phone call from the real Hard Eyes, who reveals that he is holding Jay hostage. Could you imagine going all the way to the airport, which, like, I don't know which airport you live near, but mine is located in hell, like in absolute hell. I'm sure everyone's airport is located in hell. Could you imagine going all the way to the airport only to find out you're in the wrong location? It would drive me in. This would be the real horror of my movie.
You ever feel like you're just living in an airport?
She goes to the chapel where they're holding Jay hostage, which is so romantic. And she finds out that it is, in fact, Bumble Guy and Shaw, who are a couple, and they're obsessed with killing other couples on Valentine's Day. And the guy they killed at the drive-in was just some rando.
Huh.
And it turns out that Allie and Jay weren't originally the target. Originally, the target was Allie's ex and his date. And then Bumble Guy and Shaw saw the way that Allie kissed Jay, and they were like, no, we want them.
Okay.
So I told you that scene would come back, and here it is. Jay kills Bumble Guy with an arrow, which, like, yay for the good guy using the scary weapon. And Allie has been showing, we've been seeing this metal straw the whole movie. There's been like a little like funny joke about the metal straw and how she wants to save the turtles and the environment. And we get a cameo from the metal straw by Allie using it to stab Shaw. This was such a clever callback. Everyone gets cleaned up and we meet back a year later at that same drive-in where the massacre happened. And Allie and Jay are there to watch a movie. Jay asks Allie to move in with him, and then Allie is like, no, let's get married. Right? And that's kind of how the movie ends. And there's a mid-credit sequence that kind of leaves it open-ended for a sequel. I didn't know there was a mid-credit sequence because I turned it off when the credits came on. So we might get Hard Eyes 2 Electric Boogaloo sometime next year, probably around Valentine's Day. But that was Hard Eyes. What did you think? What a ride. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you haven't seen it, remember you can rent it using our Amazon affiliate link. Again, the link is on the screen or in the description box below this video. And I would recommend this movie to anyone who loves slashers. If you love Scream the way I love Scream, you're going to love this one. This movie also reminded me of My Bloody Valentine, which I had never seen. I was kind of holding out to watch it in 3D, and that never happened. So I recently watched that, and that's going to be the next review that comes out. So these two reviews are kind of linked in a way. My final rating for this movie is 7 Valentines out of 10. It's fun, it's action-packed, and there are some super creative kills. Like, this movie is jam-packed with fun stuff. So I hope I'll see you in the next one. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Share this video with someone who you think would like this movie, because I feel like this movie is better than your average slasher. Right. And I'll see you in the next one. Ta-ta.